Do you hate ads? I hate ads. You know what I like? Patreon.com/inkdependence. It keeps this channel ad-free. Hello folks, welcome to Ink Dependence. I'm Mike, and this is Private Reserve's Infinity Ink, Infinity Green, Infinity symbol. So a lot of infinity going on here. This is an ink that was given to me for review by Yafa, I believe, a while ago, and I'm just getting around to doing the review for it because, I don't know, I just kept using it and not reviewing it. So this is a really interesting ink. The Private Reserve Infinity series is meant to allow you to leave your pen uncapped for long periods of time without that ink drying up in your pen and nib, which is a pretty cool feature, really. So I remember Lisa Van Ness testing this out at the DC Pen Show, I want to say last year. She just had a pen inked with this and just left it out on the table for people to try uncapped for at least a day and maybe longer. I don't remember. It was like a year ago almost. But these come in a 60 ml bottle right there, 2.03 fluid ounces. And it's a really interesting thing here. It says high saturation, excellent shading, premium quality, rainbow of colors. Comes in their current bottle right here, which is pretty wide. You're not going to have any problem putting a pen in there. However, when it gets low, I anticipate it's going to be kind of hard to like ink a pen in it because you need the pen head to go down and you need there to be ink there. So sometimes a tall bottle is better than a super wide one. But there's no problem, you're not going to have any problem putting putting a pen in the top of this. There's plenty of room here. And as you can see, it is a kind of a nice emeraldy green. So let's see what it looks like on some paper. Here we have it on the usual 80 grams per square meter paper that I use for these reviews. And this is a really interesting, this is an interesting ink to use. I've had it in this pen for a while. I first inked it up back in 2021 on, August of 2021. So it's been in this pen for kind of a long time, although there was a time I wasn't using this pen. It was just off on a shelf and it was empty. But I've used up a few fills of this ink, as you can see from the levels in that bottle. And that's an interesting thing because at the end of the day, I don't actually like this ink all that much. So why don't you love this ink, Mike? Well, for me, it's kind of a color thing. It's a little bit on the pale side, and also it does want to bleed and feather and spread. So it's a little bit thin. It's on the wet side, I would say, for sure. And probably that has something to do with the undrying nature of it or something, but I will say it dries very quickly on paper, which is really interesting that it dries on paper and not in your nib. I think it's drying by soaking into the paper as well as it can, and that can give you those kind of effects of feathering and bleed and that sort of thing on some papers. I had a little bit of it go through my Rhodia paper here, but not a whole lot, but not none, which is what I kind of expect. I usually expect like none. This one had a little bit of it as well, but like it's pretty rare that anything goes through. Now I do have this on several other papers we can totally take a look at. Here it is, for instance, on my 20-pound, 30% recycled copy paper, which is, it does an okay job here, but as you can see, it's kind of on the pale side, which I don't really love. I kind of wish that it would be just a little bit darker. And also you can definitely see that it has some feathers in there, and then you can see that it did bleed through. That's not that big a deal because most things bleed through this paper. As you can see, there are a couple of standouts that didn't, but most things do bleed through. So not that bad, but it's not really that great on kind of casual office use papers. This is Domtar Bold 28, which is a pretty nice thick paper. It's not perfect for fountain pens, but it usually doesn't have any kind of bleed through issues. And it did have a little bit of that on this trial. You can see it bled through a fair amount, lots and lots of spots coming through this paper. And you don't usually see that. You usually see like one or two, but it did want to go through this paper. And you do see a few feathers and also some spreading. Like it really kind of wanted to spread out into the paper, which I guess I shouldn't be surprised about, but still a little bit on the annoying side. So I keep using this because despite this feathering and bleeding thing that it does sometimes, the infinite part really does seem to work. I've had it in this pen, which is just a desk pen, just sitting here on the old desk, just nibbed down. And I figured one of two things would happen. Either it would dry out completely, although I have used up a fair amount of it. There's not a whole lot left in this pen at the moment. It would either dry out completely or it would just fall out of the nib because it's pretty wet. But as you can see, there's nothing in there. That's a white plastic insert in there, and you would totally see green ink if it was there. So, interesting thing about this ink is that while I don't love it, I do keep using it because it does have, this works. it works. There are a couple of other, well, there's several other colors of this, actually. I think I have a blue bottle around here somewhere as well that I need to try out and see if I like it better than the green. But the green has actually been working real well. So, I don't know. I kind of keep using it even though I don't love it. It's an interesting thing to do. Okay, so let's try a bit of a water test here. Then we'll look at it on some other papers and things of that nature. Look at some comparison shots. All right, so let's put some water on this thing. And there, throw some on the text, because why not? It's also worth noting while we're waiting for this to, see if it can remove the ink from the page. This does go for $20 to $25 a bottle, which is well more than their usual cost for Private Reserve, which is usually like, I want to say it's like 12 bucks or something a bottle. So you are paying a premium for this performance. So, factor that into your consideration as well. It is not cheap, but 60 ml bottle is pretty good sized. And this does do an interesting thing. So if you use just sort of, good papers and not just crummy office paper, then this might be an ink that will work really well for you as long as you like the color. I do wish it had a little more saturation. Maybe a darker green, though. It's a good emerald, but give me more. Yeah, so not water resistant at all. A couple little dots there of purple? Where the heck did that come from? I don't know. A couple little dots of purple or something. I don't think that's part of the ink. That must have been... who knows? But yeah, most of it came up. You can see there are a few dots here that really soaked into the paper, I guess, but most of the lines are entirely gone. Here is the chromatography for this paper, or for this ink rather. And as you can see, nothing left here where the ink would have started out, all pushed up the page, and all just a sort of grassy green with a light blue tinge up there at the top. Pretty, fairly standard for a green ink, I think. Although it's interesting that there's green and then they threw some blue in it, which is, it's already green. This just sort of blues it up a little bit, makes it slightly more teal, I suppose. Like I'm going to say it's an emerald. That's what I'm going to go with. That green and blue, that makes an emerald. So let's take a look at it on a few papers. This again is that Domtar 28, and you can see some of the spreading and a few little feathers here and there. Not a whole lot of feathering, but a fair amount of spread here. And also some bleed. We also have, of course, the 30% recycled 20-pound paper. This is bad paper, but and as predicted, it doesn't work super well on here. Then we have the Tomoe River ink journal, which is retired because I filled it up. The whole thing's full. All done. So on here, this actually works really well, and it looks nice. Of course, nothing's coming through the back of Tomoe River. That's not a surprise. It would be real weird if it did. And I think it looks pretty nice on here. It's still a little bit too light, and maybe for me, I want a darker emerald, but that's a matter of taste. Then we have in our Inky Fingers Currently Ink Notebook, this is a wheat straw paper, which is kind of similar to like sugarcane paper and other things of that nature. And here, I didn't really like it on this paper very much. It's like it's not able to soak in, right? And so you can see on like the G here, where when I was drawing the G, you just get a little bit of green there, and then where the ink pooled down at the bottom, you get a better color. And then here in the little scribble, it's not great. It looks okay, but it just it loses something, I think, on that paper that it has on here, and I'm not really sure why, because this definitely can't soak in either, but I don't know, maybe it sort of evened itself out. I don't know, man. All right. Let's look at some comparisons. Bam, there's my Colodex card with Private Reserve Infinity Ink, Infinity Green, Infinity Symbol, which I got from Yafa in 2021. Here is Pilot Irishizuku's Suigyoku, which is a new ink from Pilot Irishizuku line, and it's a fairly close match, although this one does go darker and give me that darker sort of emerald that I wanted. And then here is Kala's Qingxi Cliff. I'm definitely saying that wrong, I feel like. And I got this from Sugar Inks back in 2021 as well. And I think this is kind of close as well, but more blue and a bit more saturated. I didn't have really anything else that was closer than these two. So this is an interesting emeraldy green. It's a very light sort of pale emerald. And so a lot of other emerald inks just did not look like this. So it's got an interesting color that, you either like or don't. It has this interesting thing where it just doesn't dry out in your pen, which is pretty cool. So if you're a desk pen user, or you just are a person who likes to leave their pen uncapped for long periods of time on their desk, maybe you're taking notes, so you don't want to have to recap it every time you finish writing a note so it doesn't dry out on you in a meeting, like this will work. Like that Infinity Ink thing, I think it's legit. All right, thanks very much for letting me have this bottle of ink for trial there, Yafa. Y'all will see me in the next video. Peace out.